Welcome to Monday Night Live, folks, here on RGR Football. Appreciate you being with us. For those of you that are new, like, sub, hit the bell right now because it's Q&A night. It's your show. You're driving the bus. We're just kind of along for the ride. We're going to answer all of your questions tonight, whether it's super chat, which every single one will get an answer, whether it's question marks at the beginning of your question. Definitely going to have a good conversation because we got to talk about Pat and Travis. This is Dan Harms. I'm Ryan Tracy. Welcome to RGR. I wanted to start with the dynamic duo. Like, I feel like we should like hang little capes on them. In fact, I'm going to go play with like AI imagery just to get them to be Superman and Batman or something like that. But like when we come back to it, that's where I want to start tonight. And we'll get to all of your questions, folks. Please put them in the chat. All the super chats will get them. And then, like I said, some question marks at the beginning helps me pick them out. But Dan, like, in order for this season to go well, I don't feel like everything has to be perfect. The defense doesn't have to be top 15, but the two have to be the two. They have to dominate. And I have no doubt that they will. But do you feel like it's slipping you, or is it still they have to be the pair that they've always been?
That's a tough one because I don't necessarily think that they have to be the pair they've always been to be a successful season, because we're watching Patrick get better as a quarterback, and that makes everybody else better. So I think I don't think we're going to see it anytime in the next year or two, but Travis is eventually going to fall off a little bit at some point in time. He takes every offseason with the intent to continue to get better. You know, he's one of the, I guess you can say, co-founders of Tight End U. He wasn't someone that came up with the idea. Greg Olsen and George Kittle were the ones that did that, but he was included in it. But he's always looking to get better. And he's talked about, yeah, exactly, just a little bit, just sprinkle it on, just a little bit. And he's always trying to find different ways to get better. And one of the things you can do is consistently host Tight End U and talk to some of the other best tight ends in the NFL and see how you can improve your game from there to there and continue to train like he does. So Patrick is getting better. And even if Travis Kelce isn't the Travis Kelce of last year, they're going to be able to continue to make magic because that's just what they do. And even if your physical ability as a Travis Kelce maybe falls off a little bit, the mental acuity that he has is what is also making him the tight end of the player that he is. He's so smart. And that combination between Travis and Patrick will never go away. That's the beauty of this whole process. So yeah, I don't think they have to be what they have been. I still think they're going to be, but regardless, they're the combination of intelligence of both of these players is what makes them what they are.
Well, I'll go a step further because I think a lot of people feel like that. A lot of national talking heads are starting to be on the train. Like, Travis has to relax a little bit. He probably doesn't have the same oomph. I think that actually feeds into the opposite. I think that lowers expectation for the whole league. And then bam, they're going to kick everybody in the face. I feel they will be maybe more dominant this season than they ever have been before because everyone's like, we think we know him now. Patrick's Patrick, and Travis getting older. Like, I think that's going to set them up to really, really rock it right now and let everybody else come underneath the umbrella, just like we've been talking about over the last 5 years. So I'm excited about that. Let us know what you guys think. Leave your comments in the chat if you're watching this on replay, or get in the live box here because Stevie's in here. Gary's in here. Couple of our mods are with us. Brenda's in tonight. Night Hunter's here as always. Nice to see you guys. I'm stacking your questions, so we're going to get into them here a little bit. But that's really like the point right now where the underestimation part is really what I'm starting to get into is I hear more and more people on ESPN and NFL.com and all this like, well, they're going to take a step back again. Travis is a year older. That seems to be the theme the last 2 days is like Travis is older. Okay, well, he only went off for 1,300 yards last year. So what if he only went 1,250? Oh, no. What would that do? I mean, it's kind of silly. But so, like, I'm totally underplaying into, hey, they're going to be underestimated. And they're not alone. You know where I'm going with that one?
I don't know where you're going with it exactly. But all I know is that if Kadarius Toney is helping on the field, we could see him make Travis Kelce better. I'm just going to throw that out there. Travis Kelce was far and away the best player in Kansas City last year on offense. Far and away. There was nobody even came close. But Kadarius Toney as a threat, just as a threat, can bring a little bit of defensive gravity that can help Travis be even better than he was last year.
I love that you use that word, because that word is how an old defense coordinator of mine used to put it. It's the gravity, it's the pull, particularly in the secondary. When you have a weapon like that kind of shifts everything, whether they mean to, whether it's scheme or whether it's just guys keeping him in the corner of their eye, right? It's gravity. I love that you use that particular term. That's great. Night Hunter, don't worry, don't want to get rid of you. Glad you're here. Just keep on crawling and you're going to be all right. But it's not alone. And I think we're just starting to see the peak of somebody new that's going to add to this defense. And again, I like to look at the defensive side of the ball. And this guy is going to surprise people too, because I think he's underrated. And it's not just on the field, because clearly he is a good athlete. We've seen him play against the Chiefs in the AFC West. We've seen him play a number of roles. But this chess thing really caught me off guard. And I did not realize that this is that kind of game. And we talk about chess versus checkers all the time here on this channel. X's and O's and how that game is played. And now to see Drew Tranquill really step in a literal chessboard match, I mean, good for him. I think it goes to show why they wanted overall athleticism and smarts is what they're looking for here. Could they stand to get a little bit more physical on defense? They could. Like, I'll never say don't do that, but athleticism and smarts is what they want no matter what on this defense. And I think he fits right in, and it's going to be really, really intriguing to see how much he's the leader, how much he's the second to Nick, how much does Willie come in like back and forth, and how the balance comes to be.
It's so fantastic that he's that good of a chess player, you know. And it wasn't long form tournament. It was a blitz setting, so that's 5 minutes. I don't know if he had, you know, the time delay or whatnot, but regardless, being able to think and strategize quickly in the blitz setting is always fun. I remember doing that in my days too. So it's definitely being able to, like I said, being able to do all of that quickly kind of shows up in his ability to be such a good cover player, because he kind of sees things as they're happening before they happen, and he's able to cover really well because of it, as well as blitz. I think he's a pretty good blitzer as well, and that kind of all just aligns with what the Chiefs want to do underneath their secondary. They want to have linebackers, whether it's Willie Gay or whether it's Nick Bolton, that understand how the offense is going to be unfolding in front of them. And I really think that Drew Tranquill is a guy that's going to help every linebacker in that room get better at that, but also add on the field that purpose, and why he's going to play more than I think people expect. I really do believe he's going to be out there a lot more than anybody really expected when he was signed.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be a trio. And I got to give him credit. The dude just looks happy to be here. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, he is fired up. Good for him. I mean, that face. I can't believe you're taking this picture right now. Well, good for him.
Yeah, right.
I like to see it. There's plenty that can go on, and plenty of that carries over onto the field in how you exploit what you're seeing from the offense, and how you specifically execute what you're told to execute by the staff. And I think the nice thing about that is it allows, I think, Spags to then up a level again. Interchangeability between Mike Edwards, Drew Tranquill, I think Chamari Connor eventually, like that trio of who can he have on the field in what kind of situation, matchup wise, feels like it hasn't been quite the same since Tyron left. And that helps everything that Spags wants to do on the back end. I think it feels like a little bit more for me, delineation between what Spags is doing and what Cullen is doing. Because it's kind of like, okay, if you're a power linebacker, you're with the front, go with Joe, and I'm going to get funky here on the back. And I think that helps.
That's all it is, matchups. And they've found something with these two defensive guys, Steve Spagnuolo and Joe Cullen, who, whenever Spags wants to hang it up, is going to be the defensive coordinator. I'm almost positive that's what this was for.
Makes sense.
You don't bring in Joe Cullen, a guy who is probably in line a lot of different places to be, you know, a defensive coordinator. He's in that talks in that realm. You don't bring him in to just be a defensive line coach. There's got to have been some talks previously about how long Steve Spagnuolo wants to keep coaching. Now he's got 2 more rings to add to his belt and his hand. I mean, that day could come sooner than I think we all expect it doesn't end the same for everybody. But he already retired once, and you come back and get a couple more rings to add to it. It just kind of seems like it's in the getting closer. And objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. That's kind of how it might feel for Spagnuolo in his time.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, because you want a companion for this, right? It just doesn't quite look the same depending on what mirror you're looking at. That's hilarious. It's funny. I had that picture of it, and you walked right into it.
That's hilarious.
Awesome. Oh, so overall, I think the little quirks that we start to hear about this team more and more are starting to come out, and we should all be excited about that. And I'm excited about you guys. We had a great turnout last night for what was a different kind of
thank you.
Sunday night.
Appreciate that.
Different kind of Sunday night, but it was cool. We're going to have that through the summer until we get to actual football action, but we'll get there as well. And you guys are doing a great job filling up the question queue, so we're going to get after it tonight. But before we do, if you're new to this channel, hit the like right now. Hit that thumbs up. That helps us and more Chiefs fans and more football fans find us. Make sure you get subbed so you become part of our channel, because this community is great. A lot of football knowledge you're going to find in the chat right now. There's going to be a lot of back and forth on the talking topics that we have tonight. And hit the bell so you get notified when we do something cool, because we're always coming up with something different, but it's about ball, and that's where we're going to go. So we'll start off with Chiefs fan 1587. You should put that as like a year. Like, we need to make a bottle label 1587. I think that would be cool. Man, it's another t-shirt idea. Okay, there we go. Aged to perfection, we'll call that. After Chris Jones' extension is signed, who will also sign an additional veteran, edge, or an extension for Sneed? What's your scenario?
All right, so there's also another question later in the chat, Jonathan Light. When Jones signs his extension with Kansas City and cap space is freed up, which signing trade would you like to see? So we're going to clump these together, save a little bit of time for you guys. Thank you for the question, Jonathan. We'll match it with Chiefs fans. So for right now, I think that the biggest thing with the Chris Jones is to look to in-house. L'Jarius Sneed. You need to figure out what you're going to do with him and what he wants, okay? So you get him early. You're probably going to be right around training camp when they get to this point. Get it in the house. Figure it out what you guys are going to do, what he wants. Get that number on the table, okay?
I agree. We lost Dan for a second there, folks. But, first things first, take care of your own. And I do think that decision on Sneed is probably part of that process. But then you move on to what else do you need to get done? Chris is the big domino, then L'Jarius, and then what Dan thinks should be next.
My internet's awful. I hate it all the time. It's the worst. I think it's even worse than yours, which is ridiculous.
I was going to say, how have I got the better one now?
I have no idea. But after that, you can start to make some auxiliary additions. Carlos Dunlap. You look at the wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, and if Dalvin Cook is still out there, that's when you always look in-house first. It's got to be in-house first. How you're going to go in and then out and bring in guys to help tie the knots on your shoelaces, if you will. You put your shoes on, you tighten them up, you look in-house first, and then you bring in the bow, whether that's going to be Dalvin Cook or DeAndre Hopkins. That's how you want to really go about that, in my opinion. But I think trading for a guy like Danielle Hunter would be kind of secondary, if not down the road, because you have now drafted back-to-back first-round defensive ends. And if you're trading for Danielle Hunter, you're not only going to take out his contract, he's going to want to get extended. And that just doesn't really jive with what the Chiefs have wanted to do going forward. Yeah,
it feels like the corner's been turned from not necessarily pulling in new additions for on-field performance, but pulling in new additions to support the guys that are the starters, the young kids in Karlaftis and FAU, right? It's secondary pass rushers like Carlos. I know he's kind of holding out there. We all know that D-Hop's waiting for the Chiefs and Bills to sort out their collective cap issues, right? So I do feel that both Carlos and D-Hop are on the ledger here.
Yeah.
And L'Jarius actually helps that, because he can reduce his salary this season if he does an extension on top of Chris Jones. The question is, can you fit that in 24 and 25? And most importantly, in 26? I think that's where the rub is. I think that's where they're pushing now to try to move Patrick's re-extension out to, because that's what you have to progress. Patrick is, 41 against the cap in 26. In 27, he's 59.95 against the cap. So I think that's where they're trying to get it done. And if you end up going and just looking at where that space goes, who could they do it? Where does rubber hit the road? Is right in that year. So I think there's ways to stack it until then. And I'm sure that they will get it done. I'm trying to look right now. The Chiefs are rock bottom of the league right now, folks. $858K according to Spot Track.
Shocker.
So it is the juggernaut here that is blocking the road, and Chris Jones is going to get it done. If you saw last night, Chris was spotted in Kansas City this last weekend. If you didn't see last night, go back and check that one out. We did something kind of cool. We recorded it. We let it loop so you could see it twice. So if you jump in the middle, you could see the replay like immediately. It worked pretty cool, and I got a lot of folks, a couple people saying, hey, this is double, but a lot of folks were like, hey, I joined in the middle. I still got to see it all. I didn't have to go start all over and do the whole thing. So let me know if you guys like that in the comments or in the chat, and we'll try to do that going forward. So 26, 27, if I look out, and in fact, I should just be sharing this. I don't know what I'm doing here. So if I go in, and we're looking at 23 here, but if I go out to 25, what do our numbers look like as we update the roster? You're still going to see Patrick Mahomes up here.
Exactly.
As it comes in. Oh, wait. Of course, when I put it on screen, I do it wrong. That's happens. The way that goes, But long story short, it is a possibility for them to get both things done. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. When you do see the contract years here, this is also fun to look at because the 10-year 450 here is still on. Chris's is still on. And we forget sometimes that Chris Jones is a year older than Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Maybe it's his attitude. Maybe it's the way that he plays. But we have to address that here, quicker, sooner than later.
Absolutely.
I don't think we'll let it go too far. Sorry, I got a little off there. I'll try to figure out the website while we're going on here. What Chiefs group do you think will have the biggest step up this season? Thanks, Dennis. Great question.
So, for me, I think it's going to be the linebacker crew. I think that's just the guys that have the most room to grow are the linebackers. I think that the secondary grew tons over the course of last season. They're probably going to take a step to get better. But the linebackers still were trying to figure themselves out a little bit. You have Nick Bolton, who's best on those run defense downs. He got a little bit better. He's still dropping into his coverages, but he's still not a coverage linebacker. He's just not. It's not his game. And Willie's just got to figure it all out. You got to put together a full game of being able to get downhill in the run game, blitz, get into his coverages. And I do think the addition of Drew Tranquill is going to help all of them, and then they're going to just be more well-rounded than they were last year.
And I'll give you this too. That's kind of like it's a power up for the defensive line, because the more squared away the linebackers are, the more they can get the defensive line aligned so that they can see and they can be more effective. So I do think that helps the whole front seven. All right, we're going to go back to this for a second so that I can actually explain what I'm looking at here. If I can get it to the size that people can see, because, this is live television. At least that's the way I like to treat it. So here we are. And this is what I want to point out. So $856 is their current cap space. Now we go out to 24, and we'll see that this jumps up. 35 is not a lot. I'm not going to go run through every single one, but I'm guessing that that's going to be near the bottom of the league again. But this is when it switches in 25. So, if you did both Chris and Jerry Sneed, next year would have to be really light in 2024 for their base salaries. But when you get to 25, that's when things change. You take a look at it, and boom, $135 million in cap space. That's where you can start to get creative, where you can pepper more money back in for those two guys on the extension. And that's where you can start adding the talent back, like another major acquisition, I would assume. We'll see who departs and what happens there, because there's always separation envy as well. And yes, Patrick is number one. That's the way that works. So I just wanted to get that in for you guys, but since I screwed up the first go at it. James, thanks for your question. Do you think that it was intentional the Chiefs signed a DE that excels at speed rush when they know it's a weakness for Brown and they went to the rival Browns? I think they needed more speed rush, period. I think it's a happy coincidence that they happen to get to go against one Orlando Brown, because quite frankly, let's be real. Felix is great coming off the edge. He doesn't have the arm like that Orlando does. Orlando's got the experience edge as well. So I don't think it's for this year specifically, but the next 2 years, the next 3 years, to give somebody that can combat him. There's nobody. I think there's like 2 guys that are active, like play meaningful snaps, edge rushers, that have the arm length Orlando Brown does. You're just at a mismatch when you play him. But we all know the inside counter is the kryptonite. So that's what I feel you have to be training Felix on right now, is get to that crossover, get to that spin. I've seen a spin on film for Felix. I wouldn't say it was blistering, but it's there. And it does feel like it's a skill that he can build on, James. And I do think that'll be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, I think that they just want to be able to get a speed complement on their pass rush. They just haven't really had one, and that's something that Joe Cullen also excels in and can really coach up. And that's what I'm excited about, because Cullen improved the entire pass rush department last year, and he can really do some things with a speed rusher built into that. So I just think it made a lot of sense collectively with what they're doing in Kansas City to just continue to add some speed to their defense.
I like the plan. Speed kills. Al was right. I'm sorry to say it, but he was. Jason, so with the longer training camp, do you think that will be a concern for future injuries? I actually don't. I feel like it's going to be more of a ramp up, and they'll be in better shape when they hit week 1. I think there'll be less injuries overall this season, because I think they'll be better prepared to get to this season. And if I know Andy, I think he'll throttle it enough in terms of like daily exertion, so it's not going to be like stupid stressful.
Yeah, that's all you can hope for. There's just no way for me to predict injuries, so I'm not going to try.
Fair enough. Kev, hope you're good. Do you think that Donovan Smith last year was a fluke? I think he might not be Pro Bowl level, but he will be better than expected. I agree. He took a pretty sizable dip last year. Honestly, that's the only reason he's a free agent. I do expect that with injury recovery, he will return. I won't say 100% either. I agree with you, but I'd say he can get back to 90% of the player that he was in 21.
And that's all you need. Honestly, Patrick Mahomes is going to help that level of play too. It's not Tom Brady back there who has to get the ball out really, really quickly, or he's going down for a sack. Yeah. So Donovan Smith's going to be a little bit more comfortable. Like that mental stability of, okay, we have to block for 2.5 seconds so the ball can come out for Tom Brady, or longer because he can't move. You have a little bit more freedom in this offensive line, and okay, I don't have to be 100% perfect. I can try some things. I can get away with some things here and there. That mentally takes a little bit of a load off some of these guys. Not to the point where they're just out there doing whatever they want to, but it relaxes them a little bit. You have to play a little bit relaxed, not just super tense, or you're just going to be constantly in the wrong spot. And I think injury on top of all of that obviously equates to a very, very poor season. So I'm with you.
I don't think that's what we're looking for, right? Oh, yeah. Des, thank you, sir. We appreciate your support, pal. Do you guys think that the Bills getting Kincaid in the draft gets them over the hump now? How worried should we be about their offense, Dan?
So I do think you still have to worry about the Bills' offense. It's going to be a very good offense, and I think that Josh Allen being healthy is going to help all of that, because last year, I do think a lot of his missed opportunities and interceptions and bad plays came because he might not have been as comfortable throwing the football with his injury. And that leads to some poor decision-making at times for a guy who's trying to win games for a team. Like, he's just always trying to win games, and that can be at his detriment to sometimes. I don't know if they're going to run the ball with him as much this year. That's something I'm interested to see. They want to keep the load off of him a little bit, because he's going to eventually get hurt pretty badly from some of these hits that he takes. They pile up. Just ask Cam Newton. Cam Newton was doing this for a long time, taking beating after beating after beating. Eventually, it catches up to you. So hopefully, for the sake of his longevity, because I want to see great players play in the NFL for as long as they can. Hopefully, they take down a little bit, and he understands that he can't always just 4th and 15, run the balls as much as I possibly can into contact. Take a little bit of a lesson from Patrick. Get down a little bit at times. Get down.
I like the kid too. If Patrick had never made it to Kansas City, I would like to have Josh Allen as the Chiefs quarterback. You know what I mean? And that's how I compare. Like, I always try to take it out. Like, what if we still had Alex? Or what if we were in the Matt Castle days? Like, who would I want? Josh Allen's one of them, you know?
Yeah.
So good for him. But yes, cautious respect. Yes.
Yeah.
Fear. I won't go to fear. But Des, thanks for the help, buddy. Appreciate you. What does it take for Mahomes to secure the MVP this season? Love all that you guys do. Thanks, Corbin. We appreciate
Thank you, Corbin.
For me, it just comes down to domination against the elite teams, against those Bills, against the Bengals. You know, when they see the Eagles, how well does he play there? Does he separate himself? I still have them. You know, they're going to be well above 500. I think there's no way they win less than 12 games. You'll have my official prediction when we get to training camp. But if you have a winning season, you make the playoff run like we expect them to do, you get back to the Super Bowl, you're automatically in contention. But then it comes down to those elite games against elite competition for me.
Yeah. And you're also going to have the counting stats. Like, you're going to have the 5,000-yard season most likely. You're going to have to probably lead the NFL in passing yards. You're going to have to be up in the top 3 in passing touchdowns. That's just what it is. Like, that's what it comes down to. And for expectation-wise, Patrick is probably going to have to even supersede that. He might have to be first in both of those things and like first or top 3 in fewest interceptions thrown. Like, we're talking about people expecting greatness. You have to supersede expectations of everybody else around the league. So we know the record's going to be there. We know the superlatives are going to be there. You kind of have to blow those out of the water for people to be like, yeah, he deserves it. Once again, we're going to actually vote it for him instead of getting a little bit of tired of it, because we've seen it happen.
Yeah. And it's just bound to keep happening, right? So
yeah,
I think it's well within striking distance, though. Anything time he's going to be on the field. If he's on the field for 14 games or more, he's in it, as far as I'm concerned. Keaton, welcome back. I'm comfortable with Trav being anywhere north of 1,000 yards. If he can contribute that and maybe 7 to 10 touchdowns in a season, Patrick can make up the rest. I agree. It's going to be who steps up. Chiefs media, the media arm of the organization, is pumping up MVS this week. Good for them. Like to see him contribute more. Is it going to be Kadarius Toney? Who's going to take up that slack if Trav doesn't? That's going to be my question. I do expect a little bit of a slide back for you fantasy fans for McKinnon. I don't think he's going to get 9 passing touchdowns again. You know what I mean? But so who is it? That's where you got to put your money.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not ready to bet yet. If Donovan Smith turns out to be a Pro Bowl or All Pro level this year, do you think the Chiefs would extend him or look to draft an OT first round next season? I think the Chiefs are drafting a top tackle next year, no matter what. If they feel that they can do that at the top of the second and may trade down or they trade back up, whatever, they'll do that. But I think tackle is high on their list. If Donovan Smith plays that good, I could see him being back anyway. Because let's be honest, it has not been a super jump from college into the pros and nobody's done it really since Quentin Nelson in getting offensive line play that makes you all pro off the get-go. So even if you spend a top 10 pick, I don't feel that it's somebody that you necessarily have to slate in immediately right away and have that expectation. If he made all pro, that'd be a very difficult decision from my point of view.
If he did make an all pro team, okay, it's a difficult decision. Even if I don't think he's going to. So every other situation, you take that comp pick and you walk away. That's exactly what it'll be, in my opinion. He's going to, if he plays enough games to get that comp pick, you take what you can get. Draft young. You've got now. You'll have your young draft pick. You'll have Wanya. You'll have Juwan Taylor. You have a young group of tackles waiting in the wings. Like, that's ideally the situation you want to be in. And if Donovan Smith has a great season for the Chiefs, they win a Super Bowl, say, hey, appreciate all you did, man. We'll take the comp pick. Enjoy that ring.
Let's just hope, and I hate to say it like this, but let's just hope he doesn't make all pro, because then it makes things difficult. Because in the end, this is what it's about every time. Can you get more of them? These things are pretty. I keep looking at this picture. It's my new wallpaper, just so you guys know. Like, I'm kind of addicted to it. So it's got that like Christmassy glow about it. It makes me happy.
I've got to change mine. It's currently them winning their Patrick's first Super Bowl, so we got to get changes out there.
Okay, well, hey, that works. Dre Heller, hope you're doing well. If Skyy reaches his peak potential, a more athletic Julian Edelman, that's a tall order, man. And KT can stay healthy and put up 80% of Tyreek's production. How high could our wide receiver core rank? Whew. That's a great question. Because somebody's always going to discount it because it's going to have Travis Kelce at the top of it. And they're going to say, oh, it's a tight end, whatever. It's not the wide receiver core. But I fully expect Patrick can hit 5, maybe 5,300 yards. And if Trav pulls back, say Travis gets 1,100 of those, you're talking 4,200 yards to other pass catchers. I think somebody will break out of that, and they'll be considered at that point. They have to be a top 5 unit if that happens. I have to think so.
Yeah, I think that my area of concern is that they spread the ball around a lot. And I think that Patrick will continue to do that because that's what defense is pretty much going to force him to do. And that's what's going to make them unpredictable. Being able to throw the football to anybody and everybody will make them better. And Patrick has done that, and he will continue to do that. I don't know if you can say that Skyy is going to get to a Julian Edelman type of phase this year. That's probably just not going to happen. So I don't want to set my expectations of that too high. And Tony, for everything that he is, I'd be falling over myself if he gets to 80% of Tyreek's production. I'd be falling over myself. Talking home nearly double-digit touchdowns and 1,000 yards, almost like that's closing what we're talking about. So if those things were to happen, yeah, they'll be a top 5, top 7 unit. But I do think that they're a good unit regardless. Like, they're going to have a lot of different tools. They don't need to be a top. This is kind of like their defense. They don't need to have a top 5 unit. They have to have guys that work with what they are trying to do. They have a lot of different skill set at wide receiver right now, and it works with what they want to do, which is throw the football in many different ways and succeed all over the field. So I'm pretty excited about what it's going to look like, and it doesn't have to be what it was in the past. It's going to look different, but they're still going to get the results you're looking for.
Yeah, I'm into it. And Doug, thanks for this. If you guys hit the thumbs up, we appreciate it. I'll ask you a rhetorical question, Dan. Who is the one player in the history of the athletic matrix, which goes back to 2009 partials? My first full class was 2013. Who's the only player that scored better in the short area quickness matrix than Tyreek Hill?
I'm not going to answer.
It is Julian Edelman. So that is a tall.
It tells you something, right?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Oh, Night Hunter. The one player that you think might go beyond expectations, Dan?
Marquez Valdez-Scantling, guys. We are full 180. We're just pulling a 180. You guys remember me last offseason? I talked about nothing about him being very good. And honestly, for large stretches of last year, he wasn't quite good. He wasn't very impressive. He didn't put a ton of stats up. But this is the year that all of that, I think, changes because of the multiple times that they missed him on deep shots down the field last year. So many deep touchdowns that could have been. I think everybody is sleeping on MBS. He's the most experienced wide receiver in the entire wide receiver room. Yeah. The most experienced. He's got trust of Patrick. They continue to attack down the field with him all year. And the Bengals playoff game showed you what he actually could be if they targeted him 7 to 10 times a game. He could be 100+ yard a game kind of receiver if they asked him to be. I think they're going to ask him to be a little bit more of that this year. So I'm all on the MVS train this year, guys.
He's still going to have drops. That's why you got to feed him so much. But you just got to keep feeding him. It'll work out. Des, thank you for the support, pal. Mahomes talked about Skyy being in the Juju role. Could you elaborate since he's way smaller and it doesn't click to me? Sure. So here's the thing. What Skyy's biggest attribute, in my opinion, is that fits this offense is something I saw a lot on his college film, and I think we saw it in spaces last season. But it's finding the gaps, the underneath gaps, and that's what Juju was always great at. Sitting down in zones, stressing his route running so that he presses his zone to widen out and come back to, and use his leverage really well in the 6 to 16 range is probably what I would say. And so I do love the drags. I love the low crossers. I do like the pivots. I don't know, those short digs at like 8 yards. I don't think that's his game, but maybe he's improving that. That's what I associate with Juju. Do you see a lot of difference, or are you down with this thing that Mahomes is saying?
No, I'm 100% on board because they also have that stylistic tough yards after the catch. Like, they're not going to be the fastest guy after the catch, but they're going to continue to bring in these like Ryan's talking about, stopping in the zone, getting that catch, and then getting 5-6 yards after that and running through some contact, dragging a guy with you. He's not the big body, but he's thick. He's a big guy. Like he's still over 200, like 220 pounds. We're not talking about a guy that's 185 pounds. Like this is
right.
Different.
You see that here. That's why I wanted to throw this clip, because it was there. Like that's different. Surviving good contact.
And his hands are way better than anybody besides Travis Kelce's on the team. He has better hands than anybody else. We'll see if Rashee Rice can kind of challenge that. But right now, Skyy Moore is going to bring into that entire role. So I'm excited to see that.
Well, here's the other thing that I am pumped to see, because we all know that Trav runs some of those low crosser type things now as well, right? Yeah. I'm looking for stacks where you can do some splits with Skyy and Kadarius doing that, and let Trav be the 3-by-1, be alone on the other side again.
It's so funny that you bring up stack formations. It's just so funny that you bring up stacks, because I was legitimately recording my video for Wednesday today talking about how the Chiefs love to use stack formations, and it's just because it's just so easy to use them. They can get a free release for anybody they want, for anybody.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter that it's skinny Kadarius. Sorry, Kadarius, you're a little skinny, bro.
Slight. I like slight.
Slight, okay. Or Skyy that doesn't hand fight as well, right? Like they can alternate, and just the fact that they're both a little bit scary. And I think the Super Bowl is going to go in. What's the last piece of film every team has to watch? It's the damn Super Bowl, where both of them were like out on their own. So I think you can run some games with those guys in particular as pairs, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm guessing Andy's going to do that quite a bit.
That should be a lot of fun.
Thanks, Des. And thank you, Scott. Welcome back. After listening to Melvin Gordon's complaints about the current RB pay situation, do you ever see the players union stepping in and trying to install a position scale similar to the rookie contracts? I don't think that they can, because it's difficult to justify it, to tell you the truth. There will then be quarterbacks, receivers, and defensive ends, maybe corners too, that are like, you can't regulate those guys because now you're pulling down my salary. If you try to bring the floor up for one position, it's the high-end guys that are going to have to pay for it. I don't think that's going to fly. And in the end, the NFLPA is a voting body, right? They get to elect their reps, and their reps get to vote for the resolutions. I don't know. They could try it. I think, honestly, it's probably better for the NFLPA to just work with the agents and stop getting them, or get them to stop taking like terrible low ball contracts. That's, I think, the bigger thing.
The problem with that whole situation is that running backs right now are more plentiful and talented than the NFL has ever seen in terms of what you can get out of them. The NFL is using running back by committees at a higher rate than we've ever seen before, and they're getting more out of these players in multiple different ways. They don't need to pay them. So if running backs aren't going to take the contracts, they're just going to get somebody else to do it for them. Somebody else will take a contract and they'll get relative, 80, 85% out of those players that they're getting out of somebody else. So the running backs are really in a bind until maybe the next couple of seasons when we see the running game start to really go back to tick up, because wait for it, guys, it's coming back. Last year was a point. It's the last year, fun fact, was the highest recorded yards per carry across the NFL in NFL history at 5.4 yards per carry. In NFL history, teams are running the football again, and they're doing it really, really successfully because teams are like, hey, we don't want the deep shots anymore. We don't want it. So teams are like, fine, let's run the football. Back to the more things change, the more they stay the same. And NFL is a cyclical fashion, guys. Running game is coming back.
The 30s are going to be the 90s. I'm telling you, it is coming back because, nickel and dime defenses, they get run on, and it's pretty easy to do. So, hey, Scott, thanks for your support, pal. Nice to see you. And, hey, we'll keep an eye out for all the good running backs that are out there. JT, I think Skyy can hit 1,000 if KT gets injured in the first 5 weeks. Skyy's the best route runner. MVS is limited. An early KT setback could force him into more targets. Is that too optimistic? I hope so, because I don't want to see Kadarius Toney get hurt again. I hope that he's rounded that corner in the staff. But I will tell you this, too. Even if KT doesn't, I think Skyy's still going to have the ability to have that much attention, because they have to look at Travis, and they're going to have to look at Kadarius, and they're going to have to look at MVS some. So I think, honestly, the more Kadarius is out there, the more attention he grabs, and let Skyy get more opportunity, to tell you the truth.
At the end of the day, that's what you're looking for. Like he might not get to 1,000 yards, but he could be far and away the second most in receptions on the team next to Travis Kelce. He could be that what Juju Smith-Schuster was last year for them and getting all those receptions, because that's kind of what the role he's going to be asked to do. You're not going to be scoring a bunch of touchdowns. You're not going to be, used a ton down the field. You're just going to be first downs, receptions, a guy you trust. And that's, at the end of the day, what Patrick Mahomes wants.
I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. Has there been a Super Bowl team of you that you can remember lately that has completely, the whole world has forgotten that they had a 1,000-yard rusher and a receiver that was nearly at 1,000 yards after having the best tight end in football? Like, it feels like the accomplishments of last year's roster, Juju in particular, but Pacheco as well, are just kind of like way under the radar and everyone's forgetting them. I'm baffled by it.
I mean, mostly because, again, people just assume that running backs can do well in any read system, and that's just kind of how it works. And Juju Smith-Schuster was forgotten about because he got hurt, and he was dealing with injuries throughout the rest of the season, and he's no longer in Kansas City, so people just put it out of their minds. Like, he just doesn't matter.
Okay.
It matters. Matters, guys.
I'm gonna keep saying it till it matters. Thanks, JT. Appreciate you. Steven, thank you. What is Veach doing to prevent our O-line from collapsing like it did the end of 2020? Do we have enough depth in case more of our starters get hurt? I mean, I'll tell you what I think, Dan.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Go for it.
I think the reacquisition of Allegretti, when I thought he was going to be a Chicago Bear, is like significant because he can play all three positions and knows the offense inside and out. Like, they trust him. Patrick trusts him, and I think he can get the job done. And now you have enough talent at tackle behind the starters that you feel like you can go through some attrition and an injury or two and still be viable. And so I do feel like those two things alone. Do they need another interior guy? Can Kennard be that guy? Yeah. If Austin Ryder's on this 53 rut row, we got problems, folks. But we'll get there when we get there. I do feel it's probably serviceable, though.
You have 4 guys right now. I think you can feel confident starting at tackle for a game if you need be. 5 if you want to count emergencies for Joe Tooney. Like, you got.
Yeah.
I think you feel more comfortable going into the season right now, and we'll see what training camp happens with some of the younger players. But you might feel more comfortable now at tackle specifically than you felt in a long time, even if the proven talent for your team isn't there. You might feel just more safe. I guess that's the better way of putting it.
Yeah. Like, you can take a speed bump and you're going to be okay. But yeah, that's how I feel. Let's see how many they keep. I'm really interested to see what the numbers look like going into week 1. Des, thank you again. Are there any draft picks that you believe won't make the roster or practice squad? Any of this year's draft picks? That's what I have to make sure that I concentrate on.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I mean, there's no way any of the top hundreds don't. Wanya Morris is taking reps as a backup left tackle right now, so that's happening. I wonder, the only guy that I have concern about that I can't see a place to play right now is BJ Thompson. I do think he's practice squad worthy, certainly. He's just a guy that I think needs an extra year to get going, right? The only guy that's on the fence for me is Nick Jones. I think Condra Coburn and Jamar Conner on this roster pretty easily.
I really think KJ Coburn is going to play quite a bit more than people expect. Like, this season, I think he's got a really good player. It's BJ Thompson. I don't think BJ Thompson is going to make the roster, but he's going to be I think he's going to be a good developmental player. Just continue to learn, do everything you can. I do think Nick Jones makes the roster. I think he's going to be the last corner.
It makes sense. It's got to be that fight. I mean, especially with whatever's going on with L'Jarius. Until we know a little bit more about that, then we know what the emphasis has to be on the next nickel options.
Especially if he's going to be playing on the outside more this season to make more money. That's the thing, is if he's playing more on the outside, Nick Jones is going to make this roster.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not to discount Najee Johnson for all of his fans out there too. It's going to be a great battle, and I think they're going to go head-to-head most of camp. Thanks, Des, and welcome back to the memberships.
Welcome in.
You guys, if you want in the Discord, you can get in the memberships there. And that's where you get to talk to Stevie and all of our regulars, all our core contributors, all of our pure fans. It's only RGR folks in there. We don't open it up to the public yet. Maybe we will someday, but right now it's just RGR Nation in there. So all you got to do is join the button there below Dan, join at the rookie level or higher, and you can go over to Discord and just connect your accounts, and you're in like Flynn. Super easy. You can take a look at it right now at, let's see, what's the link? I have to put it up there. It's bit.ly/RGRNation, RGRN are all capitalized. You can take a look at it. The foyer is open. It's like one room where you can, see what goes on and whatever. Not a ton of action in there. You got to get behind the wall before you get into the real stuff. Ask Frankie. He's our resident genius when it comes to that stuff, but you can find a lot of folks over there. So thanks, Des, and welcome back. Gary, one of our mods, one of the OGs around here. Everybody say hi to Gary. I heard on another YouTube channel the Chiefs should run on first down team to help Patrick Mahomes. I think that's crazy. I mean, again, I think the only thing that determines that is the defense that you're facing. If they're going to give you dime on first down, run the ball. I mean,
I think Patrick kind of understands that. At this point in his career, he understands what he's doing. But they're still like the best first down passing offense in the NFL. Like they just are. And I'm not going to pretend like running the football is a more efficient way of doing that, even against dime. Patrick will still find ways to do it. But again, advantageous. If you want to take a defense and you want to make them play more nickel, make them play more base, you show them that you're willing to run the football. That's what you do. And then you start to throw. This goes back to Drew Tranquil playing chess. This is a chess game. Like, this is what this is. You make defenses adjust to what you're doing, and then you readjust. That's what this is.
That's perfectly timed. I just didn't have the image back up. Dang it. I wasn't ready. I'm sorry.
I know. It's okay.
That was a perfect opportunity, too. That makes me mad. But no, Gary, I see what you mean. Like, it's crazy to take it out of Mahomes' hands anytime. But if it's easy, and like Dan said, if you're getting, and in this offense, there are backs that have gotten like over 6 yards a chunk. If you're getting that, just take it and go with it and try to get them to drop another linebacker, bring that safety down. And then you have like all the haymakers you want. So I'm into it. Keaton, would that make Nagy the head coach in waiting then? Possibly.
So. I'm going to go ahead and say no.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I still feel like Matt Nagy is going to be like my guy Rex Ryan, a better coordinator, an elite coordinator than a head coach is my overall thought. But
he also might feel the same way. We're going to find out what ends up happening. Maybe we don't. Maybe Matt Nagy stays here for a couple years. Andy Reid doesn't show any signs of slowing down. Maybe he gets a shot somewhere because, I don't know, people like to do that with
people
recycled head coaches.
That's what Drew said. He thinks it's funny. You never know. Crazier things have happened. Steve, is Spags a Hall of Fame coach?
I love this. He absolutely is. He absolutely is.
Yeah, you're 100% on it, huh?
I'm 100% on it. He coached. He was the defensive coordinator of the Giants when Michael Strahan broke the record. He has 2 rings there. They shut down the best team NFL history has ever seen, almost going undefeated, New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. Shut him down. He shut him down again in 2011. He comes over here, reinvigorates a terrible 2018 Chiefs defense. Terrible. They won a Super Bowl. Then they go back the other way, and they reinvigorate again. He is, without a doubt, in my opinion, a Hall of Fame head coach.
I miss Trez, but if Trez was here, he would say that the conversation in the room when they do the voting will be, has he really won it all? Did he really get a credit for it? He stopped Tom Brady from going undefeated, and that's the thing on top. Yeah, the thing on top, rings and beating the best that ever played. And I think that will go down. I agree. I think he's going to make the Hall. Great question, Steven. Scott, thank you again. Since you're on the topic of Spags, do you think he's legitimate? Okay. I didn't realize there was both of you.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it.
I should have saved that for you, Scott. I apologize. And that was a terrible Trez impression, but Trez, he told me more stories about what happens in the Hall of Fame voting rooms than I have ever heard in my life. Good God, the stuff that goes on in there. Tom Flora, nice to see you. Just got here late, but hey, saying hi. Thanks, Tom. We appreciate
Thanks,
you. It's
Tom.
nice to see you too.
So I appreciate everybody. Tonight I gotta head out a little bit early. I have a radio spot on 810. So if you guys, after you're done here, go ahead on over there. Seth follows me right after I'm done. So
nice.
You get 2 RGR guys on 810. But
pump the channel. Nobody ever has me on, so hey, why not?
We'll get it out. We'll get the word out.
Actually, I lied. I'll be on at lunch with Josh tomorrow, you guys, on 810. So
here he is.
All right, Dan. Have a great night, dude.
All right, guys. See you later. Have a good one.
Later.
Treat him with respect.
Yeah, that too. We'll run through these here, folks. I know I'm the more long-winded one, but I will get it done. So let's get here. Des, thank you again. Last question. Do you think that Veach has to extend Sneed, or can Williams and Watson merge as a CB2 with McDuffie next year? You're saying a lot in that one sentence, and I like that. I do think that if you're willing to play the breezy way, where you are a little susceptible over the top, but you're confident in your safety play, I think that Jalen Watson can grow into that role. I'm fairly comfortable with that. Knowing that you have Josh Williams as well as an alternate, then it comes down to, do you have true nickels? And that's going to be, is it Najee? Is it Nick Jones? Is it going to be someone else? So I do think there's another piece that goes in there, but I would like to see him extend Sneed. I think that's the best way to maintain your level of corner play. It's just going to be about the money, and I'm just not 100% that can get done. Thanks, Des, and thanks for everything tonight, buddy. What are your guys' yards and receptions and TD projections for Skyy? All of the guys. Okay, so we think, I'll speak for Dan here because I know he agrees with me that Travis will lead still. But I think it's more like 1,100 for me. Maybe 11 and 11 in yards and TDs. Kadarius, I am hoping for 810. Skyy, I'm hoping for 708. MVS, 600-ish, 700-ish, and another 7 or 8. And then Rasheed, I'd like to see just be the wild card. I do think Jody Fortson and Noah Gray are going to be in that calculation as well. Thanks, Jordan. And Quinn, the 21 draft class is eligible for extensions this next offseason. What order would you sign Creed, Bolton, and Trey Smith? And what do you think who do you think is most likely gone? Well, here's the good thing. 2 of the most economical positions to sign, even on big second contracts, are the center and guard positions. So I think you can do that. People naming Nick Bolton a top 5 linebacker in this league makes things harder. But he's a Mizzou guy. He's a Casey guy. I don't think he wants to go anywhere. If it were up to me, I would sign Creed first overall. I would sign Nick next. I would sign Trey after that. It may be hard to get Nick done, so it might be Creed, Trey, Nick in that order. Again, depending on what you have to cascade, because like we saw earlier, only $35 million in cap space for next year right now. So some things will have to be done. Chris and Legarius can fix some of that. Obviously, Legarius has nothing on next year right now, so it would be mostly Chris. Sorry. Legarius can keep his contract low, and that will help. Jonathan, hope you're good. Okay, no, I just read that one. And Quinn, you guys hit the same thing. That's awesome. I like it. Most likely to score: Skyy 1,000 yards, Kadarius 1,000 yards, Justin Ross 500 yards, Gray or Fortson 500. Okay, so 3 guys to hit. Any of those 3 guys to hit 500 yards, or Kadarius or Skyy to hit 1,000. I think the most likely, Mac, is Kadarius to 1,000. If we believe anything that Brett Veach has said, they're going to force feed Kadarius Toney. They think he's a number 1. They want him to be the guy that scares defenses across from Travis. I think they're going to pepper him until the cows come home. Thanks. Good to see you, Mac. Denny, how many years on a CJ deal? I think Chris Jones is looking for 4 or 5. I think the Chiefs would like to be at 3. I think they settle on 4. And maybe there's an out year before that 4th is kind of my thinking. Tony, do you think that we should be worried about the Broncos after Russ? Let's ride Wilson. Complete 16 consecutive passes against no defense during minicamp last week. Tony, the answer would be no. That does not have anything. But I will say this. If he's serious and he buys into the fact that he's, not the prima donna he thinks he is, and he buys into the Sean Payton program, I think they can be markedly better. Can they beat Kansas City and threaten the West? I don't think so. Not in year one. But no, the mini camp completions don't bother me. Jason, do you think that our defense is getting better year by year? Do you think they will help us get a better chance to win more Super Bowls? Jason, I absolutely do. Because in the end, right now, if Patrick doesn't score 30, you got to wonder about the game. Like each week, it's got to be the number they're pushing for. If you can improve that defense, you can get that down under 28. Patrick Mahomes and his offense is going to score 28 points pretty much every game till he retires. So like that's the magic number for me. If you can get to 26 points given up by the defense on average, I think you're in like Flynn. And I think that takes some pressure off of Patrick as well. Tom, thank you. Good to see you. And thanks for earlier as well. Do you think that Diggs knows something about the Bills management no one knows? Could he be a target for us in the future? He's not happy. He's definitely not happy. And I do think that Stephon Diggs is aware of what life is like in the NFL. He knows there's only so many passes and receptions to go around, and he knows there's only so many years you're going to play. So I do feel like he's kind of on an internal clock. I don't think it's necessarily to do with the management, although I'm sure he doesn't like getting flouted around that the D-Hop could be somebody they're interested in. But I don't know if this lasts much longer. Certainly if it goes into training camp, then yes, I think you could see a way that he's out of there eventually. And then, yes, I think the door would be open here in Kansas City. I think Patrick would like to have him. I think every player that I know around the league respects him. And I think that would continue over no matter what the contract issues become. Doug, thank you. How will the AFC East and AFC North be? North's going to be a slugfest. I'll tell you that. That's going to be some formidable competition. East is as well, but it feels to me a little bit like they're gunning for the Chiefs way anyway. Like, I don't know that the defenses are going to be stout enough to keep up in the East. The Jets are very good, but I don't see them taking a step forward on defense. I have trouble with that. So maybe outside of the Jets, I don't trust the Bills to get better. I don't know that Miami's done enough to make me feel better. I mean, Bill Belichick's defenses are always solid, but the question in New England is going to be, can anybody get Mac Jones to be an actual NFL quarterback? And I'm not certain that is capable, even for Bill O'Brien. They like to throw all the blame right now at last year's not so offensive coordinators. I think there's a problem with Mac. You guys know how I feel about Bailey Zappi, but I think the world in New England's starting to come around to that thought as well. Steve, wouldn't it be in D-Hop's best interest to take a pay cut and play for the Chiefs? Is he pricing himself out of a good situation? He certainly is, but he's also 31 years old, and he sees one more opportunity for a broken Odell Beckham to get $15 million a year, that this could be his last payday he can ride off into the sunset. So it really does depend. After playing for losing franchises his whole career, does he want to go get that ring or not? That's really all it comes down to. And I think I would, but he's not as groovy as Sammy Watkins is, but he's kind of a groovy dude, and maybe he just wants to, prepare for the rest of his life, and the money is more important to him right now. I honestly don't know. Steve, another question. Trade for Tyquan Thornton. I don't think there's any trading going on right now, including Danielle Hunter, but definitely not Tyquan Thornton. I don't think they're going to give anything up. Let's see. The Dockster. This is my 60th year as a Chiefs fan. Congrats and well done. This feels like the best wide receiver room I can remember, or am I deluding myself? It's certainly the most overall guys with talent. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think anybody on this roster right now is as good as Tyreek Hill. I would question whether right now, I think there's potential, but I don't think right now Kadarius Toney's as good as Jeremy Maclin or Dwayne Bowe, or even JJ Burton, right? Like, and I know everybody's going to say Otis Taylor. I never got to see Otis Taylor play, so don't talk to me about Otis Taylor because I don't know. But I do feel like there are a lot of guys that do have talent that could play in this league. So I can see where you're coming from there, Dockster. Toad Tommy, hope you're doing good. Let's see. How do y'all expect the real MVP, James Winchester, to perform this year? Also, is Tommy Townsend the best punter in the league? And why is the answer yes? Okay. Yes, he is the best punter in the league for power, for his ability to throw the ball on fakes. I only question his holds, Mr. Tommy Townsend, and I'm guessing he's been spending a lot of time working on that. As far as James Winchester, he's getting up there in terms of mileage and age. I think his snapping is going to be fine. Does he have as many tackles on special teams as he has in years past? My guess is probably not, but that's okay. His number one job is to deliver the ball to the holder, and that's all that matters, or the punter in those cases as well. And I am confident in him, and I think he'll do a fine job yet again. I just don't look for the tackles as much. Tom, thank you again. A few more teams going to a throwback uniform this season. Eagles, Kelly Green, Bucks, the creamsicle. Oh, are they really? I'm not ready for that. Would you like to see us go to a Dallas Texans throwback uniform? What are your thoughts? No, because that's not really a throwback, in my opinion. That was a different franchise that had to move. I don't see that the same way as the Colts becoming the Ravens or anything like that, right? And honestly, the Chiefs uniforms have been the same since 67, right? So I would just say more block letters, less outlines. I don't know. But no, I personally would not like to see a Dallas Texans throwback. That would not be my preference, but I'm guessing a lot of Texans fans would like to see that. So, hey, Doug, which are the players you're most hyped about for either the rookies or the UDFAs this season? I mean, the guys that I'm most hyped about are guys that I think are going to creep up on people. And I do think Jamari Conner is one of them. I'm excited to see him play because I think no one counts on him, and he's going to play a role that I really like in terms of that backside blitzer out of the nickel, out of the slot safety, whatever they're going to align him in. And I'm excited to see Rashee Rice. I do think that his development is nowhere near complete. I think he's got a ton of upside, and I want to see somebody that wants to go prove themselves, especially if D-Hop were on this roster, a guy that he looks up to and wants to like angle his game after. That's where I would be going. Folks, we got a couple of super chats here, and we're going to wrap up. I'm sorry, there's like over 100 in the chat that I haven't gotten to, because usually Dan and I do this back and forth as a tandem, and I have been terrible since he had to leave early. So hello to Miss Holly and Brenda and all the regulars that are here at the end that I didn't get to. Cole, nice to see you. I'll grab one from Cole here, and then we'll hit the rest of the super chats. So here we go. Nick, thank you, buddy. Where would you rate the PM15 season out of all the QB seasons all time? I'd place it third behind Peyton and Dan Marino. I think Marino's got to have the number one, right? And behind Peyton is perfectly fine with me. I think the 19 season for Patrick was honestly a little bit better. I do have to say that. And I want to give him that credit, but yeah, I could agree with you there. I don't have all the quarterback seasons like top numbers off the top of my head. My brain just doesn't store that stuff anymore, so I'd have to go look, but I will not argue with you. And before I forget, Teddy, thank you, because we got a super chat last night when it was rolling along, and I do want to answer that. And that was projections for the wide receiver room. We kind of covered that tonight. In terms of yards, and feel free to throw in the non-Travis. So here's again the thing. I think it should be Kadarius Toney, and then Skyy MVS, back and forth, back and forth. I'd love to see Rashee Rice start to push in there as well. And I think everybody else will be kind of part-time contributors. My big question is I want to see Rashee Rice, and I want to see him get going and make a contribution earlier than Skyy did last year. And obviously Skyy had a big Super Bowl, and I think he's going to play a big role this year. I'd like to see a little bit more from Rashee Rice as a rookie than we saw from Skyy Moore as a rookie. So, Teddy, I'm sorry. I meant to do that at the top of the show, not here at the end. And you've already asked questions tonight, too. So thank you again, Teddy. We very much appreciate you. And to our guy, Gary, do you think teams won't know who to cover for the Chiefs this year with so many new receivers? Absolutely. I mean, they're going to have concepts, but they won't really know exactly how much Skyy's improved or what Rashee Rice can do, or honestly, how they're going to choose to change some of their route tactics. Because every route is a series of tactics about how you want to stack a guy, how you want to leverage a guy, how you want to body him up, or how you want to avoid contact. And I think that changes all the time as well. I don't think teams try to run the routes the same way every year. So I think that is going to be something that they just don't know what to do. I think you're going to see, especially early, say the first quarter of the season, you're going to see more zone than man. because I don't think anybody really wants to go press until they figure out what's going on. I hope that works because I think that plays into Andy's plans. So I'm pretty happy with that. Thank you, Gary, and thank you for everything you do here around the channel. Appreciate you, buddy. Keaton, welcome back to the memberships. Nice to see you. And we're going to wrap up right now with Cole's question. But please like, sub, and hit that bell. If you want my hat or the hat Dan had on, or the Rogue Nation sweatshirt, you can get it all in the RGR store. It's down there in the links here inside the description of this video. So please check them out. And we'll answer Cole's question here. Now remember, deep dive wide receiver projections for all the deep analytics that Gary's been doing all summer comes out tomorrow. He's recording that tonight. I think you guys will be pumped. Then Wednesday, we get back to Dan's look at the film. Thursday, we come back with Seth's back in the Chief in the North. And then Friday, you're going to get the best of and maybe a couple of twists depending on what happens this week. So I would like to say that I have something new for you. We will find out. A couple of things. So Cole's asking here, to wrap up the show, are they resistant to extend Sneed because they don't want him to turn into a locker room cancer that Marcus Peters became? And I would say wholeheartedly no. I do not think that's true because L'Jarius Sneed does not have the attitude that Marcus Peters had in any way, shape, or form. I think what the concern is that he is going to be expensive enough that it's fitting into the bigger plan. They spent money on Justin Reed. They know that while next year will work fine, the year after that will work fine, then they're going to have to try to sign, if everything goes to plan, 3 corners all at once in 1 year. And I think that's a terrifying prospect for cap analysts in particular. So I think it's more of that. I will also say it this way. L'Jarius came down with more interceptions in college than he has in the pros. He's made plenty of PBUs, but he just hasn't finished the play enough. And I think they're hoping to get him over the hump there. And I don't know if this is not a done deal or if they just got to wait till Chris is done and they do intend to extend him right away. That may be true. If it's not, the only thing that I can think of is that they're trying to push him to finish those takeaways more so they get the ball back. That's my general thought. But I don't think it has anything to do with him becoming a non-team guy or, like you said, a cancer. Peters was a much different personality type. L'Jarius has always been a team-first guy, and everything that I hear from inside the locker room in the organization says that he still is, to this day, a team-first guy. So he's got to play for himself this season if he doesn't get the contract extension, but I don't think that's going to change his personality markedly. So that's where I'm at. Thanks for spending your Mondays with us. We appreciate it. And you guys do a great job designing this show with your questions. So thank you very much. I hope that you guys have a great Tuesday, and we'll be back with you. Don't miss Gary's piece, and we'll have more on the analytics and the deep learning stuff that Gary is so into beyond my metrics and everything that goes a long, long way. And I hope you guys are digging that. So have a great day and a good evening tonight, and we'll catch you tomorrow.